Want to find out more in the fallout of the Kenny Young trade from the Los Angeles Rams to the Denver Broncos, a rehash of what happened between the Rams and the Detroit Lions in Week 7, and what to look for between the Rams and the Houston Texans going into Week 8? Find out on this episode of the Locked On Rams podcast.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rams Nation, how's it going? As always, it is your boy, your host, Sosa Kremenjas. I'm a fantasy analyst at PFF and your host here at the Locked On Rams podcast, your number one daily podcast covering the Los Angeles Rams and part of the Locked On Podcast Network. And as some of you guys can see on YouTube, for those that aren't on YouTube, I feel bad for you, but you're going to get caught up here in just a second. My man, Brad Motter, is back. He's got a nice little background. I know for those that are watching on YouTube, they definitely love it. My man is finally settled into his new house, all locked in. The internet looks good. My man, Brad, we're going to dive into a lot of topics. We got to discuss the Kenny Young trade, obviously go back to look at how the Rams and the Lions shook up in Week 7. Definitely want to hear your thoughts on that. And then we'll look into the Rams and the Texans in Week 8 and give our preview there as well as a prediction. But before we get into all of that, my friend, I know this last week's been hectic for you. How you been, brother?
Oh, man, feeling great. Finally through the most crazy move of my life. I mean, I've grown up in my life. I've lived in like 13 different states, 2 countries. I've gone everywhere multiple times over and over again. And this was the most difficult move. I am here, as you guys see on YouTube. You mentioned it. I told Sosa off air, I said, you can flex your muscles. I'm going to flex the fireplace setup with the Rams logo, give YouTubers one day of a little something in the background so they can get off your case because, some like the blank background. I'm cool with it. But I took the opportunity to throw that Rams logo up there and have a little fun. I'm excited to be in the new place. I'm excited to be back. I told you I was just itching at this. I got internet yesterday. I was hounding them about getting here because I need to get on this podcast again. Here we are. We're talking about another victory. We're lining up another game that, don't want to get ahead of myself, but looks like could be another victory. And we're just talking about a really good Rams team, even though there are some things kind of moving and shaking that are always kind of interesting. So we've got a great episode. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, most definitely. It's great to have you back. I love this dynamic. I'm sure a lot of the fans are going to love having you back as well. Like I always tell you, this is my favorite episode of the week, man. I'm 100% being serious there. And I mentioned some of the topics, so we can start diving into them now. The very first thing, some breaking news, the Rams lose safety J.R. Reed from their practice squad. He was signed by the New York Giants, presumably because Jabril Peppers, their former starter at safety, tore his ACL. He's out for the year. So the Giants get a good player in Reed. I mean, it's not really going to be too impactful of a loss here, right? The Rams have one of the deepest safety rosters probably in the NFL. It might be the deepest position on the team, to be quite honest with you. So unfortunate that they lose a good player, but this is what happens when you keep guys in the practice squad, right? They're available to be had by other teams. Yeah. And I'm happy for this guy. This guy was great in the preseason. We talked about him a lot. I feel like throughout the first, 3 games of that preseason, continuously standing out, high PFF grades continuously. So awesome for him. I'm sure he's going to get some run there on their 53-man roster. So that's very good news for him. Jalen Ramsey, our old friend, cornerback, happens to win Defensive Player of the Week for PFF on his 27th birthday. We talked about his performance. I think it was on yesterday's pod. He was great. I mean, outside of that screen call, he allowed 10 yards in the entire game on 3 catches, basically just a lockdown performance. And it's not surprising. I mean, this guy's pretty damn good at football. But Brad, the biggest news, Kenny Young, and I talked about it on yesterday's podcast a lot because it's important. This guy was the best linebacker on the roster, the number 1 linebacker. They play some of those 5-1 fronts up on defense, which means 5 guys on the line of scrimmage and only 1 linebacker on that second level. And Kenny Young was that guy for a lot of this season. Obviously been somebody that they've relied on as the best linebacker on the team, someone that they can trust in coverage, all these different aspects. So when you look at this trade, and for those that don't know, the Rams traded him to the Denver Broncos in exchange for a 2024 6th round pick, and they sent a 7th round pick in that same draft alongside Kenny Young. Basically nothing, right? They getting 30 spots plus at the end of a draft in a couple of years. That's literally the worst value you could possibly get for a guy. What do you think of this move? Are you concerned? What do you think of some of the other guys sort of slated to step up here? And ultimately, are you concerned with their, now lack of potential depth at this spot?
Yeah, it's so interesting. Obviously, they want to get the rook, Mr. 5-0, in the lineup and get Ernest Jones in there to kind of start getting into why they drafted him in the third round, right? But it was funny hearing you on the podcast. I'm driving into work, and you're like, Kenny Young is our best linebacker, and just went off on how great he was. And we kind of joked on Twitter that you probably should have said Troy Reeder is our best linebacker, and maybe that would have been the guy that was, got kicked to the curb. There's got to be something here. And we've done this over and over again, trying to break down what Les Snead is doing. And it's impossible to do it because you never know what the next move and the next move and the next move is, right? We got this 6th rounder in 2 years. Guarantee we don't pick that on that pick, right? That's going to be packaged, thrown into something else, moved along, probably maybe within the day. And, so this isn't done yet. So as much as I want to go like, what the heck are you doing? Which we're all doing right now, because immediately you're going, hey, that was our best linebacker. And we do have to fill it in a position group that was pretty light. And you're putting a lot on the rookie to come in and try to do some stuff. And then anybody else in that room, right, to kind of get it done. You talked about a few guys, Traven Howard, that would just has really been nowhere. Does a guy like him kind of come in and try to make something? Do they continue to do moves? Like, we're not done yet. The trade deadline still has some room to breathe a little bit here. So maybe there's a bigger move out there. But I was really surprised because honestly, we talked about this earlier and how deep our safety room was and how Burgess is getting 0 playing time. I really thought it'd be him first. And you could actually maybe get some decent value back if you're not going to play him, because I don't know what the heck they're doing with him in the secondary and where they're going to find a niche for him. And maybe in a weird way, that's partly it, right? Hey, they're going to go lighter and they're going to start getting more safeties in there and start rotating that way. Maybe that's a play that we're not seeing yet. I don't know what the heck they're doing, but I do know this. The Rams are 6-1. Their defense has been up and down at times, but for overall, I'm pretty, impressed with this defense to make the big play when the big play is needed. And I just got to watch this thing play out. And Kenny Young was fun while he was here. He wasn't an Aaron Donald or a Jalen Ramsey, so I can't rip off the Rams logo and be like, I'm tired of this stuff. I just have to let the process play itself out. But for a little bit, I think me and you are going to be scratching our head going like, what is the next move? But Les Snead is out here playing chess. We're playing checkers, and we just got to let this man do his job, because right now he's put together a hell of a ball club. And I'm pretty confident, especially with our schedule we're at, that we're going to be in a pretty good position to be playing playoff football. We just got to hope that the next man has that opportunity. You talked about obviously losing a guy on the practice squad, going and getting some run elsewhere. That just means another door was open in the linebacker room to say, hey, you guys, this is your moment to come and grab it. Hopefully we've got somebody in that locker room right now that's ready to come grab it. And if not, Les Snead's still making phone calls. We'll see if we get, potentially, I don't want to say a stud in, but somebody that is an elevation of Kenny Young. And that's where you got your fingers crossed. And I'm with you, because there's just a lot of questions. But at this point, Les Snead, you do your job. I'll probably, moan and whine a little bit that it's not what I wanted. But at the end of the day, keep getting winning football. And at this point, you can trade anybody except for, probably about 5 guys on our team. And then I'll really have a problem.
Yeah, no, this makes perfect sense, right? It's hard for me and you and for fans to know, because we don't know what the plan is. And I try to kind of talk about that in the last 2 episodes, is like, there's a lot of a domino effect when it comes to Les Snead and how he operates, right? You look at Marcus Peters on his way out. We all kind of like, what the hell? That is a horrible trade compensation. 2 hours later, we're celebrating that Jalen Ramsey's on his way in, right? They just do these things all the time where they get rid of a guy and then they get someone else to replace him. And they just consistently do it at the best level, I think, maybe in the NFL. Like, they're so good at stacking talent consistently. And you mentioned it too. Kenny Young's not on that upper echelon tier where we're talking about, you just lost a superstar player. Like, this guy was a replacement level player, solid, maybe below average to average on his best day. But the Rams, I think, can replace that pretty well. And at the end of the day, this is still the weakest unit it was before this trade, and it still is now. So I don't really think there's much of a downgrade here, to be quite honest with you. Like you mentioned, though, there is still, I want to say, 5 or 6 days up until this trade deadline comes. So there's going to be a lot of speculation, a lot of waiting around. I'm refreshing my Twitter feed probably more than any man in North America right now. Like, it is unhealthy how many times I've hit that button. I'm waiting for Les Snead to make a move, so hopefully he will soon. I'm quite certain that there might be something cooking up. I don't know for sure, but there could be. So in just a second here, we're going to dive into this recap from the Rams and the Lions and what you took from that game, Brad. You guys can follow us on Twitter at QB's MEP, at Locked On Rams, and at LA_Rambling Bear, and on YouTube at Locked On Rams. I told you guys, let's get us to 700 and blinked an eye and we're at 750. You guys are the best. I love you guys so much. Thank you for always making us your first daily listen here. Let's get us to 800. I don't know how quick we can get there, but you guys are running it up. So hopefully we'll get there quick. For those that do drive a car while they listen to this podcast or just drive a car in general, you should go get a free app called Get Upside. It's one of our sponsors for today's episode. You get up to 25 cents cash back for every gallon of gas that you fill up with. The promo code is called Touchdown. I mean, you're getting free cash. There's really no downside here, which I guess is kind of funny with that name, Get Upside. And it's just the best. I mean, you can cash out anytime. There's no issues, no complications. If you wanted to go straight to your bank account, it works like that, or to your Amazon gift card or to PayPal, whatever the case is, you can cash out anytime, no issues. And on your first tank of gas, you can get up to 50 cents cash back for every gallon that you fill up with. Again, the promo code is called Touchdown, and the app entirely free on the App Store or Google Play Store. It is called Get Upside. Get it to get up to 50 cents cash back for your first tank of gas. And you guys know that we've always got you covered here on all things Los Angeles Rams, but with the trade deadline right around the corner, don't miss our live NFL trade deadline show. This is going to be fun. Hopefully there's a lot for those guys to discuss. I know the NFL trade deadline can kind of hype us up a little bit sometimes and just come in super boring. So hopefully that's not the case here. You can listen to reactions to every single move, plus a second half season preview and much more. Catch the live show from 3 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern, November 2nd on the Locked On NFL YouTube page. Brad, now we can reverse time a little bit here. They've heard me talk about it, but now I've also gotten a chance to dive into some of the tape. So I guess I got some new observations here as well. The Rams, the Lions, they played. The Rams win by 9 points. Not exactly the most impressive win, but at the end of the day, they improved to 6-1. The Lions, I think, are now 0-7, so just horrible for them. But when you look at this contest, if you have any kind of memories that stick out in this game, of course, the Jared Goff return, Michael Brocker, some of these things, what did you take from this contest? Because I talked about it. It wasn't the prettiest win, and it didn't feel great coming out of that game with a win, but at the end of the day, still got the job done.
Yeah, there's a couple things you can look at this, right? We talk about in the past, like you got to beat the teams you're supposed to beat. And we saw the week previous to this that we dominated a team that we were supposed to beat, right? And that felt really good. But then there's also that additive of you also just got to find a way to win ugly games against a good team, against a bad team. You just can't allow what happened a few years ago when we played on the road at the Jets to happen. When a bad team beats you, you just can't let that happen. And we didn't let it happen here. It was close. We definitely, made it a lot more interesting than we should have. But, the amount of, tricks that they pulled out of the bag and unloaded on us, left everything on the table and really succeeded. Like the fact that they did 2 fake punts and we didn't stop one of them. I mean, if I was them, I would have just never stopped doing that because I would have been like, you got to stop us before I stop trying to fake this or whatever. But the other thing is looking at it, they did such a great job. The Lions, I'm speaking of time of possession. And I actually looked this up because it's a lot closer than I thought. That the Lions controlled it 32 minutes to the Rams 27 minutes. It felt like we had the ball for 7 minutes at one time. And there was a big long drive near the end of the game that the Rams came down and scored right before the Lions came back. But, that took a big chunk. But going into that, I'm sure this was extremely more one-sided. And that was a telling tale to me as well, that we could get that done and still find a way to get points on the board. This offense is moving. And when we click, we can go down and score, and we don't need a ton of time to get it done. Penalties are always great for me. I think looking back, even the first couple of years I started covering the Rams, penalties were one of our biggest problems. And we haven't talked about that all year. And kind of saw we only had 4 penalties for 35 yards. And that's the type of stuff that is going to be, kind of complete you as a really good team. Yes, our special teams really messed up. We had some defensive gaffes. We had some offensive gaffes. But overall, those type of things are really look good to me. Another thing that I found interesting, and this was kind of a topic of conversation coming into this game, and JB Long tweeted about it afterwards. He said the Rams offense on third down the last 2 weeks prior to this game were 4 of 21. You talked about it on the podcast. Not good enough, right? For a team that is that efficient when they get moving, it's not good enough. And what they did this last week against the Lions was 9 of 13. I saw someone actually retweet it and said, okay, now do the defense. And the defense was 6 of 15 on third down, which is great. We won on third down on both sides of the ball. That's what you got to do against good teams, against bad teams. So there's like these silver linings that I was just kind of digging through. The last one I want to talk about, and Stafford ended up, 3 touchdowns on Sunday? Is that what he ended up with?
It was, yeah.
So this is actually from _Scoot. I saw this and I loved it. He said, if Stafford throws 4 touchdowns today, which he threw 3, so he's 1 short, he said he will match Jared Goff's touchdown production for the Rams all of last season, but with 17 less turnovers. And we're talking, where are we at in the season right now? Like next week, he's going to pass that and he'll still be 17 less turnovers than Jared Goff was. That was mind blowing. I don't know where you got that underscore Scoot, but that was a killer stat because it was just like, that's the step up in the quarterback play while we still have, Cooper Kupp just destroying anybody trying to play football on the same field as him. And then you got Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald on the other side. This team is stacked at certain positions to get stuff done and to have a leader at the quarterback position to do that. And then also just to see Jared Goff finally, it was almost like I needed it, right? I wanted a lot more sacks because like we went through our pain and bless Jared Goff, not hating on him, not piling on to everything that he's gotten here in LA. But it was like, you owe us one, man. You've blown so many games by a pick six, by a fumble sack. Like, I need to see it on the other side. And he did it at the end. He said, you know what? I'm going to save it for the dramatics. I'm going to do it here in the red zone to close the game to Jalen Ramsey. And Ramsey comes up big, Aaron Donald with the pressure. And it was like, finally, I felt closure. Like, he did it for us, like finally, so that was kind of my cap of that game. But man, stressful. First NFL Sunday here in this house, and I was pacing. I got a lot more square footage now these days, and I was pacing. And to see that get done at the end was good. And hopefully it's build on it, go on the road and come together as a team and saying, hey, like, that was the Lions, but we got out of it alive. Now let's go beat up on the Texans.
Yeah, that would be the ideal scenario, right? You go into this next one and take care of business for the second time in a row. You broke that down, just so eloquently, so I appreciate you for that. One thing that I did actually note, I think, this morning I was kind of just looking at things and thinking about why was this running game suffering so much in this game? And that's not to discredit the Lions, right? They were great on defense. Let's just call it what it is, especially that D-line, and not in the pass rush. They were absolutely stonewalled, but in terms of like their run defense, gaps, gap control, things like that, they were really solid. So mind you, I'm looking down at my phone right now. I have the tweet pulled up. The Rams lined up in 12 personnel and running back production. I quoted this this morning. Said weeks 1 through 6 with a healthy Johnny Mundt prior to that torn ACL, they lined up in 12 personnel 17.5% of the time, and they averaged 3.8 yards per carry, which was 23rd in the NFL. So not great, but decent. Then you look at week 7 without Johnny Mundt. Of course, he tore his ACL, so he couldn't play in this game. He's not going to play for the rest of the season. They only lined up in 12 personnel twice, and that was at the end of the first half to kneel the ball down and at the end of the second half to kneel the ball down again. So they did not line up in 12 personnel even one time in this game. And they averaged 2.5 yards per carry in this contest, 26th in the NFL. I think with bye weeks, that was the worst in the NFL this week. So that is something that's interesting. I'm looking at it right now because a lot of those big runs, when I was watching back through the tape for the last 5, 6, 7 weeks, a lot of those good runs were with Johnny Mundt and Tyler Higbee on the field together, and they were doing a great job run blocking, and now they can't do that. And so I started to notice on the tape, instead of having a second tight end out there, they were trying to put Cooper Kupp in a lot of those same situations. And Cooper Kupp's great, and he's a tough blocker too, but he can't block a defensive end like a Johnny Mundt can, and Johnny Mundt still can hardly do that too. You're asking guys that are, giving up 60, 70, 80 pounds to block somebody, which is just, it's just not going to happen. So that might be part of the reason why they struggled running the ball in this game. And it is something that I wanted to note because now, what are they going to do this week against the Texans? What are they going to do in future weeks? Are they going to run a different type of offense? Are they going to have 2 tight ends out there at some point? And is that running game ever going to get better? I see you want to say something.
Yeah. Well, the thing that added that too is not only is that concerning for this week, but it's concerning moving forward because you look at the depth of our tight end. We don't really have another great pass blocking tight end. It was Mundt. That's why Mundt made the team, right? He wasn't here to catch balls, and the guys behind him really are in the building to go catch football. So really going to be interesting to see how they adapt to that. And if they try to, we're talking about making moves. Like, is there a way that we try to grab somebody else, whether it's a trade or somebody that was left off of a roster that's sitting on a practice squad? That's a big guy that can come in and kind of help there. But that's concerning with those stats because looking down the roster, there's nobody to fill in Johnny Mundt's role right now. Johnny Mundt was the only Johnny Mundt we had because Tyler Higbee is the other guy, but you don't really have the roster to do 12 personnel. So that's a little concerning moving forward.
Yeah, it is. And that's why I wanted to note, right? They don't have that second tight end on the roster that can block and put his hand in the dirt. Jacob Harris, great player, but he's basically a big wide receiver. And Bryson
Yeah.
Hopkins, he's not even active. I mean, they just brought up Kendall Blanton from the practice squad prior to this game, and he was active in his first week after being on the practice squad all season. He was active in like the first day on the roster over
Crazy.
Hopkins. So that should probably tell you what they think of him, which is not high, right? And now that you said it, I'm kind of getting the wheels turning in my head. My head is just crazy. Delanie Walker, man, I think he's a free agent, former Nashville guy.
You've been trying to say it for a while. You've been saying it for a while on Twitter. Get it done.
One of my favorite players to ever watch in the NFL. This guy is a hoss. He's going to put his hand in the dirt, and he's going to drive you off the ball. He's like 34, 35. He's coming off a season-ending injury. If the Rams want to go sign somebody who can make an impact, play those 7, 8, 10 snaps a game, put his hand in the dirt and run block, Delanie Walker. I'm calling you out here, Leslie. Delanie Walker. Let's bring him back to the NFC West, except for the right team, not the 49ers this time. So in just a second here, we're going to flip the page and start looking at the Rams and the Texans and break down that game. But before we get there, you guys know Brad and I love to bet. And if you guys want to get in on some of that action, go check out betonline.ag, one of our sponsors for this episode. They're your number one spot to cover you for all your pro and college football action this season. They got a bunch of cool different contests open, from the $500,000 NFL mega contest to the $200,000 survivor contest, both open right now. You can use your mobile device or head to their website, and you can receive a 100% welcome bonus on your first deposit. That is a lot of free money to play with. I'm telling you, you can make a whole lot of parlays with that, right, Brad? Yeah. BetOnline, your fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports, from football to basketball to boxing, even horse racing. If you're into that, I'm not judging. I'm sure it's fun to bet on. It's always fun to bet on. Don't wait. Make sure to take advantage of all the offers available for the 2021 season right now. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. And you guys have heard me talk about the Built Bar many times on this podcast, and we'll continue to do so because they are the best protein bar on the market. Listen, I've tried a lot of different protein bars. Some are chalky, some don't taste good, some are expensive. Some have 10 grams of protein in the bar, so they're practically not even a protein bar. They're just filled with garbage. You don't have any of these issues with the Built Bar. They've got a bunch of different flavors. They're absolutely delicious. They're low in calories. They have 19 grams of protein per bar. They're high in fiber, so they'll fill you up. And they even work for you if you are on the keto diet. The best of all, you'll even get a free cooler with your purchase while the supplies last. All you have to do, just go check out BuiltBar.com and use the promo code LOCK15, and you'll get 15% off your next order. Use the promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at BuiltBar.com. And as always, just want to take a quick moment to thank you guys so much for always making us your first daily listen here at the Locked On Rams podcast. For your second daily listen, go check out the Peacock and Williamson NFL show. These guys will break down every major NFL news story in under 30 minutes every single day, entirely free, wherever you get your podcasts. Now, Brad, it's time for us to flip the page. We've made fun of the lines enough. The Rams are 6-1, and the Houston Texans are the entire opposite here. I mean, they're the reciprocal for those math freaks out there. The Texans are 1-6, and I don't remember much from high school math, but I do remember that. All right. So the Texans, not a good football team, right? This team is bad. They're probably fighting for a draft pick at this point. They should be, at least. And you look at the quarterback position, there could be some shakeup. I just looked at the news. Tyrod Taylor, I think, was activated off of IR, injured reserve, starting to get in some practices here or there. And he's way better than Davis Mills. I mean, there's no doubt about that in my mind. But at the end of the day, that roster is bare. I mean, they don't have a lot over there, not this season at least. The best player they have is on the sidelines collecting paychecks and not playing anytime soon, at least not for that franchise. So when you look at this matchup, Rams-Texans, Rams sitting at 6-1, the Texans at 1-6. What are you expecting to get out of this game? What are you expecting to see? By the way, for our schedule breakdown series, we both had W's in this contest. I don't foresee that one changing.
No, it better not. No, it's an interesting matchup for the sake that there's really nothing interesting about it in the sense of the other team, right? Like, and not to dog them, but they are like the Jets are looking over going like, ugh, like, look at the Texans though. Like, their quarterback doesn't even want to be there. Like, it's really bad, that situation. I mean, you saw when you had JJ Watt kind of go back, and he just said, like, I don't even know this franchise. This is not the franchise that I left even just in this last offseason. Like, there's so much turnover there, so much question. Obviously, you talked about Watson and his whole situation and just how uncomfortable that has got to be. And I really feel bad for guys like Brandon Cooks, who is having a pretty decent year. And if he had a quarterback and Mills, and not to be like coming at people, but it's not an NFL starting quarterback. Like there are even better backup quarterbacks out there. Like our own quarterback, our backup quarterback would go over there and crush it in Houston and be able to throw the ball a little bit better than what Mills is doing right now. And it's not just on Mills. It's across the board, right? They've got ugly things at every position, but it is a reunion for Brandon Cooks. He is on my fantasy team, and I got to move him to the bench because it's been struggle town since Mills has been here. And you mentioned Tyrod Taylor might be back, but does that change the outcome of this game? No, it shouldn't. It better not. He's coming off another injury. Poor guy seems to be injured all the time. At least this wasn't at the hands of his own doctor this time. This was, an actual NFL play that happened. So I'm excited to see him get back out there because I'm actually a big fan of his and just the way that he's a leader, and seeing a little bit behind the scenes with him with Hard Knocks when he was with the Chargers, and the way that he kind of took that role, and he did that in Cleveland and he did it in Buffalo. He just never has gotten that crack and that fair shake, and injuries have been brutal for him. But this is one of those games we talked about in segment 2. You just come off of a really tight battle, and it's the NFL. So as much as we make fun of them, like they'll be able to make some plays. They're going to be able to try to move up and down the field and maybe get a tip pass, get a turnover. So we just have to really stay mentally strong on the road and kind of come together and kind of go like, that last game was a little too close for comfort versus, kind of a lower class team. And hopefully that was the little wake up call. You always talk about a wake up call, and it is usually in the form of a loss. Hopefully this is the form of, oh crap, we almost lost to the Lions, is scary enough than a loss. And you can go in and kind of take it to where you guys can, the Rams can go in and really just dominate. This should be, a multi-score touchdown win. 21 points and over type of win is where this thing could set up, right? We saw the Patriots just blow out the Jets and not come off the gas at all last week. And I think that's the type of game that these Rams need, is just, hey, just do not come off the gas. A 14-point victory and playing it safe, which we've talked about. McVay might be one of the safest, and I'm doing some fake air quotes here. I guess not fake, I'm really doing them, but he's like one of the safest coaches out there. So I hope that he doesn't take his foot off the gas. This should be a blowout. This shouldn't be close. And really it should be one of those where we start statting, those records, and Cooper Kupp should have crazy amount of numbers. We should get a really good look at our middle linebackers. They should have lots of opportunity to go out there, maybe rotate some guys, get some guys in there. This should be one of those things where it's looked at, a live chance to get some game action for people that maybe not get out there. If Burgess doesn't get like 12 snaps because we're blowing him out, like I'm gonna be pretty pissed off. I think this is an opportunity for the Rams to try to test some things out, get some people out there that don't get a lot of run, and run this sucker up. We had a heart attack last week. We are playing the Texans. Go blow them out.
That's definitely the hope here. I mean, you talk about it. That makes a lot of sense, right? You want to try and get up on this team early so you can start to have that cushion of, you don't really have to worry about losing a game, but also start to test out some of those things, right? We want to look at this new linebacker group. How's Ernest Jones going to step in? If he's even the starting linebacker by the time Sunday comes, you never know. By the time we finish recording this, there might be a new linebacker coming into LA. So we'll see. But as of right now, how is Jones going to adapt to this new defense in his new role as maybe the number 1 linebacker on the team? How is he going to pair with Troy Reeder? You talk about Darrell Burgess, you look back to last week, Nick Scott got a lot of run on the defense again, and that was not Darrell Burgess's role. I mean, it's kind of surprising still to see it happening, but is this the week they start to transition a little bit there? I've even seen some cool mentions in the YouTube comments. This is why it's great that we're on YouTube. Some people say kick Taylor Rapp down into that like sub-package linebacker role.
Love it.
And slot in Burgess back there like that. I love that idea. That is a great idea. It's not going to be, Taylor Rapp on first, second, third down all the time in that linebacker slot because teams will just run at them. That they just can't do that. But in those sub-package roles, second and long, third and long passing situations, I love that idea. I think it makes a ton of sense. Of course, it's very different for him going from safety to linebacker, but we've seen guys do it before. Deone Bucannon for the Arizona Cardinals. Mark Barron, who went from safety to legitimate linebacker. He was good for the Rams for a couple years. So it's definitely doable. And I think the more creative they can get on this side of the ball and in this game, it can benefit them moving forward. We even talked about that 12 personnel, a few minutes ago. can you try out another tight end in this situation now? Maybe try, putting Jacob Harris out there, Kendall Blanton out there in this 12 personnel package against the Texans. Try to run the football a little bit, see how it works out, see if you can replace Johnny Mundt in this one, and give yourself an indication of what you are as a team moving forward in those games that really, really will stress you out. Not to, knock the Houston Texans. Every NFL team's a good team. You never know who you're playing. Could lose in any given week. I talked about it last week. I said the Rams should beat the Lions by 2 or 3 touchdowns, and they barely won. I mean, it was a 5-point game with like 5 or 6 minutes left in the game. Like they had a chance to actually win that game. So don't want to walk over the Texans here, but the Rams should beat this team, right? They're just way more talented. And ultimately, I think the Rams have a really good shot to improve to 7-1, which is important because it's got a lot of big games still left in the second half of the schedule. A lot of divisional games, a lot of other games that are intra-conference, like the Minnesota Vikings, I think the Green Bay Packers as well. So right now, the Rams in a good spot. Brad, I'm going to hand it over to you. Do you have any last thoughts in terms of a prediction here for this game?
Yeah, it's funny because you just said that this is an NFL team. We thought we'd blow the Lions out by, multiple scores. And I just got to keep going with what I see and what I feel, what I believe. And that is that this should be a 14 to 20 point victory. Like this should be this should be 2 touchdowns. Maybe it's a 17-point victory, but that's where I'll go. I think this is a 17-point victory for the Rams. If it's not, and we still get a win, I'm going to be proud, but I'm sure there's going to be a lot to dissect if it's not at least a 10-point victory. If this thing comes down to the way it did last week against the Lions, then we do have some big time concerns because when we roll into, you talked about the Vikings, we've got the Tennessee Titans right around the corner. And then the divisional games, like it doesn't matter what you've done in the past 8 games leading up to it. You got to win every game in front of you. I think this is a big win for the Rams though. I got them by 17 plus. Will I bet that? Probably not. Like maybe I'll tease it down to like 7.5 or something, trying to get a little money there. But I don't trust this because, again, I stayed away from everything in the betting world. I just took money line with the Rams, and I'm glad I did because they made it close, and I probably would have lost everything if I teased it anywhere. So it's an NFL football game. You guys know it from the movie. Any given Sunday, a team can win or lose, and I guess we're going to find out on Sunday. But this should be a big win for the Rams.
Most definitely. I think this game's going to be a good one. It's going to be fun to watch. Hopefully the Rams can improve to 7-1. Like you mentioned, they got some tough teams coming. Tennessee Titans, who look like a terrible football team after a week or two, suddenly look like they might be one of the best teams in the AFC. So
weird.
NFL season's crazy, man. You can never count anyone out. Right now, the Rams look like one of those teams that are going to be poised to be playing late into January, maybe even into February. We'll see. This game, great opportunity to run up some of those stats. Like you said, Matthew Stafford, let's start to build that MVP campaign. Cooper Kupp, man, let's go break some franchise records. I want to see 1,000 yards receiving after this game. All right, can we get like 200 yards receiving in this one? 1,000 yards in 8 games, man, that would be wild. I'm here for it. I can't wait for it. Thank you guys so much for always listening to another episode here at the Locked On Rams podcast and for always making us your first daily listen. Make sure to go follow us on Twitter at QBsMEP, at LA_RamblingBear, and at Locked On Rams. And go subscribe to us on YouTube at Locked On Rams. Get us to 800 ASAP. Please subscribe or follow to get our latest episodes, content, breaking news, and a whole lot more.